Welcome csc200 class to ex5 table, and what we're going to do is we're still going to work with our ex4 document, and I'll open it up here. I'm in my csc200 workspace. I'm going to open up my ex4 index page, and we did this last time, and this was the one that actually generated data or showed data on a page from our database. So we connected to it and then we showed our data. Now when we did this, remember we have to run project in order to view it, because it has to run through our Apache server in order to generate the PHP code or interpret the PHP code. So I'm going to go down here and click on the file and open, so it opens up in a new tab. And remember, it's going to go to the main directory here. So I'll open up this one. This is the index PHP inside the Ex4 folder, and this is what we did. And I actually took away the other columns. We were going to have like code and continent, but we really didn't need them because they weren't that helpful. But also, one of the problems we'd have with that is they would all get jumbled together and we'd be just putting spaces in between them. And what we want to do with this one is actually make it look like this. So I'm going to go back here. This is a finished version and we're going to work on this. Actually, I don't even have to open it up. I could just go back here and go to this directory and I'll open up my finished version. And this is what we're going to do. Now we could change the look of this. I put some colors in here and change the font. But this is the finished version. This is taking the same data that we generated and then also putting some columns here. Now I put the code column, I put the continent, I also put population. We could put anything we want that we pull from that database, but this is kind of using 4 columns right now. And we put some padding on it, we put some colors, alternating rows, things like that, but it's in an HTML table, and the very last row of this HTML table we can actually display the results, so we kind of have an idea of how many there are if that's what we're looking for. So this is kind of our finished product. This will involve some CSS. So in order to style this table, we're going to use CSS, and we're also going to have to use HTML in order to generate a table. So we're going to do all that with our ex5, and we're going to duplicate our ex4 folder first before we do that. So I'm actually going to close this up for now, and I'm going to close up my index.php, and that's the one from my ex4 folder. I'll close up this finished folder right now, but what you're going to do, and make sure you close up all your files before you do this, is you're going to duplicate the ex4 folder, and you can right click and say duplicate, and I think it puts a number on it like that. And I'm just going to call it ex5, and you don't have to put table on it. You could put the word table, but if you do, just don't put any spaces or anything, but I'll just call it ex5 for now. And that should make a duplicate of your original folder, and you'll still have an index PHP in here. And if you open this up, I'm going to hit reload here. I'm not sure what happened. And what we're going to do here, instead of just kind of putting kind of a row with line breaks is what we did originally. Let me just make sure that this actually displays okay. And I'll just say open, and I'll go to ex5. Yeah, and that looks fine. So everything looks fine here. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to put some HTML tags in here and make it a table. So I have a little video very quickly, and I'll just kind of go over what a table is. I'm sure you're familiar what a table is, but I'll show you that first. So we'll take a look at that really quick, and then we'll get back to here. Here's a quick little graphic here, and I can make another one. But basically, the way a table is set up, you're familiar with tables probably from Word or Excel, is basically they're rows and columns. Basically, there's 1, 2, 3 rows going down, and there's 3 columns going across. And the way they're identified is they identify a row with the TR tag. So basically, there's going to be a TR, and then at the end, they're not showing it, there's an ending TR with a slash in front of it. And this would be a TR, and this would be the ending TR. And this would be the TR, and that stands for table row. So this would be the first opening tag of the table row, and then at the end, there would be an ending tag of the table row. Same thing with these. Now these are on top almost like they're columns, but they actually represent each one of these. They don't represent the whole column all the way down. They actually represent a cell. So TD is actually a cell. It's called like table data is what that stands for. So this is a TD, this is a TD, this is a TD. So each of these will have an opening TD and an ending TD. Opening TD, ending TD, opening TD, ending TD, and then a closing TR. So that's the way our table is set up, and they'll all be enclosed in a kind of a starting table tag and a closing table tag. So that's the basics of a table. So we have to put these little tags in here, these elements. So, and we can do that. Remember, we can put HTML into our PHP as a string as long as they're in quotes. All right, coming back here, and what I'll try to do is set this up the way we were going to do it originally. So we'll add a couple more columns in here, and basically the way it's set up is we're making a row that's showing the name, and then it's doing a line break. And that's basically what our finished product looks like. It looks like that. Now let's put in a couple more items in here, and we can basically just copy this row with name. I'll just copy that and paste it. But remember, we always have to put this space dot. We have to kind of separate our variable. And this is kind of like if you've ever worked with JavaScript or anything, it's kind of showing like an array, like an index kind of from an array. So it's kind of similar to that, not exactly. But I'm going to do, and actually this is the wrong place for that. I'm going to do it after here. And this one is going to be called, instead of name, this will be called, actually, I don't have a list here, but we're just going to call it code, because that would be from our database. Now, I don't have my database open, but I think it was called code and had a capital C on it. And then I'll do one more, and I'll put another dot, and we'll call this continent, positive that was the name of the column. Remember, these are column names. So we had a column name, which was the name of the country, and then code, which will be like a 3-letter code, and then the continent. And then we could also put population if we want, and we might as well do that. Let's just put population here. So I'll put one more, and I'll call that population, so that we're going to do name, code, continent, population. And we could generate this and see what it looks like first. Now, it's going to be all jumbled together for now. I know that. But let's just save this and see what it looks like. So I'll refresh this. And that's what it looks like. And that looks terrible. But it does have all our data. It has our name, it has our code, it has our country, and it has our population, which is in millions. And we want to fix that so it shows up nice in a table. So to do that, we're not going to just put things in a line like that. We're actually going to make table rows and table columns. So we're going to do that next. So what we want is we want this while loop, as long as it's getting results, to keep generating rows of a table. So, and as it's generating rows, there'll be table cells in there too. So each thing will be in its own table cell. We don't want to generate a table each time, so we actually have to generate a table first. We don't have to generate it. We can actually make an open table tag. So right here in body, I'm going to go here and just create a table tag and kind of open up that table. And then there's this closing table tag here, and I'll cut it and I'll kind of put it at the bottom. I'll put it as my last thing here. And it should be indented a little bit because it's inside a body. So we have an opening and closing table tag. So all this code here is going to be inside a table, so we should be able to generate rows and columns that actually go inside that table, so it knows where to go, because we don't want to create a loop that generates multiple tables. We only want to create rows. So that's what we're going to do here. And then our rows right now are generated by line breaks, but we want them generated by rows and columns, TR and TD tags. So we're going to have to do that first. So what I'm going to do here, and you could break this up, so this might be easier. I'm going to break this stuff up a little bit and put them on separate lines. And I'm just hitting return here. Now we're not really going to have a line break at the end, and maybe I'll indent this too, so just so it's easier to see with the echo. And remember, our HTML, whether it's a line break or a table, row, or column, has to be in quotes. They treat them as strings. And I'm actually going to make this a closing row. And we're only making one row here because remember, we're generating multiple rows. So this will just be one row, just like we generated one line with line breaks. So I'm going to start this off with a row. If it looks funny, it's because it's not in quotes. So we need to make sure that our row's in quotes. Then everything will color itself nicely. Now these things are also going to have to be columns. So we're going to put a column, and if you want to copy one of these and just start it out, whatever makes it easier, and I'm going to make a TD here. And then at the end, I'm going to do a TD. And we're going to have to put these dots kind of in between everything, because whenever you're joining strings to variables, we need this kind of dot here. And actually, it should not be inside the quote. It should be outside. So let me do that again. It should look like that. And I'm going to put a closing TD tag here. And I'll just copy this one and use that. And I'll put the backslash. And then I'll put another space dot space. Now you don't need the spaces with the dots, but I think it makes it easier to kind of see things. And here, I don't think we need a dot because we're going right from table tag to table tag. So I think we're okay there. that I don't think we need to join these strings with dots. And what I'll do here is I'll just copy this and kind of put these 4 columns here, and then at the end I'll do the same thing. I'll copy all the ones from here and I'll just paste them over top of these. Now when you get an error, this is where it's going to be, because it's very easy to mess this up. But we're going to start off with a TR and a closing TR. And we don't need a dot, or we should need a dot. Although I'm getting an X here, so I must have something messed up. Let's see what it says. Syntax error, TD expecting OR. So we have something here with the TD. Maybe I do need a dot. Yeah, I guess I do. Unless I put them together. But I guess I do need a dot here. Yeah, I have one over here. So anyway, I was getting an error, so I guess that answered my question. So we have dots kind of separating everything here, unless we put them together in quotes. But since we're not putting them together, we're keeping them separate. We'll keep it like that. So this looks okay right now. Again, we have one row that has basically 4 columns, and I think we have our opening and closing tags, and we have our table tag that we created. There's our opening and there's our closing down there. I'm going to save this. And again, I'm not doing anything different. We're using the same database. We're using North America, and we could change some of this to generate stuff. But I'm going to save this. And I'm going to go here, and I'm going to refresh it. And we actually have it in a table right now. Now, if you weren't sure, you could basically go to View Developer if you're in Chrome and view the source, and you can see a whole bunch of table tags there. So it is a table. Here's the opening table tag, and you can see what it did. It put all those, when it generates the HTML, it basically creates a table because it put the table tags inside the main table tags, the opening and closing table tags. It put the TRs and TDs inside there. So we're okay. But what we want to do is make this look a little bit nicer. And we could do that with CSS. We can actually, and also before I do that, just let me point out here that we can use different things. And actually, let's use a different one. Let's use Oceana, because I never heard of Oceana before. But Oceana, and it's ocean with an I and A. And we're going to save that, and we could just refresh it. And there's Oceana, and it's Australia and New Zealand and things like that. And now we don't know how many there are, but we could see things like population. We could see the continent. We see their country code, so that helps us a little bit. And we see the name here. And as long as you had this, I mean, this was probably the hardest part, just getting this right. And what helps is putting in the white space there so this thing kind of works. Now, like I said, so this is working so far. So this is kind of the first part of it. And what we're going to add to this is we're going to add some CSS. And just to get started with the CSS, I'll just kind of start it, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll work on part 2. Hopefully we could get through this all in 2 parts. This shouldn't be too bad. Now, our CSS is actually going to go in our head tag. So we're going to put some CSS here, and we're going to put a style tag, and I'll just put style. And it's coming up with snippet, and if it does that text CSS, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And it puts an opening and closing style tag. That'll work there. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some styles for our table, for our cells, things like that to kind of spread it out a little bit. We could change the font, anything like that we could do. And in fact, I'll do one right to start. I'll do one for table, and I'll make a selector for table, and I'm just going to put a margin, and I'll do a margin left because we just want to move it over. And you could move it pixels, you could use it M's, you could whatever. I'm going to move it over like 4M, and M's are like basically equivalent to whatever the default font size is. So if the default font size is 16 pixels, 4M would be like 64 pixels, something like that. So I'll just put 4M for now, and I'll save it, and I'll refresh it. And you can see it moved our whole table over. And what we're also going to do is we're going to put in some padding right, so things are, there's a little more space in here. We'll put some padding around each cell, and we'll even color kind of alternating rows. And then in the end, we're going to use another MySQLi function to show the number of rows, and we'll get that from W3 Schools. So this is the first part of this. So if this worked out okay, you know, you're in good shape. So we're just going to do some CSS after this. So we're going to move on to part 2, which is basically going to be styling our table.